welcome to Senior Circuit. I'm Ashley Speliotis, the director of the Somerville Council on Aging, and I'm joined today by our guest, Steve Gintz. He's the owner of Instrumental Health, one of the services we use a lot, and one of our guest program services. He runs our music and movement program, which has been going on for a couple of years now and was able to transition throughout the pandemic. So welcome, Steve. Please, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and your work as a music therapist?
Yeah, definitely. Thanks so much for having me. Firstly, and also I can't thank you enough for giving the virtual programming a try during COVID and doing that as much as we could. That was, I think, a really wonderful thing when all the programs for most people sort of broke down, and the isolation was sort of felt. The fact that you and the folks at the Council on Aging were able to create this online space where people were still able to meet, I think was incredible. It was wonderful for me to get to see those faces again after a bit, and I think it seemed to be wonderful for everybody to be able to connect again
Yeah,
after a few months.
absolutely.
So
You kind of you learned with us, I would
yeah,
say, right in when we stopped, when the pandemic first, everything shut down. I think you were scheduled to join us just a few days after that, and then we learned to pre-record some of your shows to be able to watch at residents' convenience. And then we were really talking about how sometimes the isolation and even seeing your face via Zoom and seeing the smiles that happen there were a big part of it.
it was.
So
Yeah,
we were able to transition you on to Zoom. And now we're back in person a little
yeah,
bit differently, but I think we jump ahead. Um,
yeah.
a lot of what you do is falls under the umbrella of a music therapist. And I think a lot of folks out there, and maybe even some people who come to our group, are coming for the music and coming for the movement and aren't quite sure what a music therapist is. So why don't you
Right.
tell us a little bit about yourself and your profession?
Yeah, that they would not be the only ones. It's though the profession has been around for years now, it's still something that a lot of people are not familiar with. So basically, there's a whole long definition of what music therapy traditionally is, but the more simple description of it is it's using musical interventions to accomplish non-musical goals. So the same things that one would work on in traditional talk therapy, let's say, whether it's depression or anxiety or trouble connecting to people, whatever that might be. Rather than doing that in talk therapy, you utilize musical interventions to sort of reach those, target those places and work through some of those things.
Mm-hmm.
And another thing about music therapy, I have to be a steward of the profession, because there is a lot of confusion out there about the difference between music therapy and therapeutic music, right? And it sounds kind of, it's like, oh, okay, you're splitting hairs here, but music therapy is, it's a profession that requires significant schooling and degrees. And though it is music therapy, is obviously also very therapeutic. There's a big difference between music therapy, which is practiced by a licensed and credentialed music therapist, and therapeutic music, which can be listening to songs that sound nice, or it can be, someone playing piano in the lobby of a hospital, or it could be a celebrity going and singing songs at a burn unit or something, let's say. That is therapeutic music, but they're not music therapists. So music therapy is an evidence-based practice, and there's many, many different fields of music therapy, more improvisational-based ones. There's ones that are based on biology, so physical, neurological music therapy, for instance. It's called NMT, and that's all about using music to stimulate the body. So if you know about Gabby Giffords, this is a very famous use of music therapy, but she was a congresswoman who was shot and she lost the ability to speak. And music therapy had a nice little moment in the news there because through the use of music therapy, she was able to learn how to speak again. Which is really
Amazing.
yeah, it's amazing.
Mhm.
And one of the ways that's done, I'm not a neurological music therapist, but from what I gather, the method is that in our brain, music is stored in a different part of our brain than speech. So
Mhm.
I've worked with some folks who are not able to speak, but they are able to sing, which is really beautiful. There's a connection of the tones, and
Mhm.
so I believe a method, or one of the methods that was used, is that you have someone sing something, and then by slowly reducing the amount of pitch, it turns more into speech. So they sort of learn how to do that. So someone
Yeah.
might not be able to say, hello, my name is Steve, but they might be able to
Mhm.
sing the melody for, let's say, happy birthday. And if you say,
Mhm.
hello, my name is Steve, and then you say, hello, my name is Steve. Oh, okay, there you go. Now I'm saying Steve. And,
Mhm.
and I might not have been able to do that before. So music is
Yeah.
incredibly powerful. And
Mhm.
so that's a little bit of an idea. Music therapy it's just a very vast field. There's group music therapy, there's individual music therapy. Um,
Yeah. I mean, because really, like you mentioned, that you are doing your work very intentionally to build connections with one another and to
right.
increase socialization and to help with anxiety and depression. And music is this incredible tool where sometimes the person isn't even aware of the benefits. I think that,
Right.
like you were saying, that sometimes people say, change your mood, how we all felt a little down, put on some music and we're feeling pretty good. But with music therapy, it's very intentional. And that is really how you came to help us at the center. Is we were running our memory cafe, which is a dinner for people with cognitive decline and their care partners. And Steve was one of you, came as a guest, and really had some great success for people who are exhibiting some cognitive decline and their reactions and their ability to remember songs. Well, they were having difficulty interacting with one another. You start playing some music, and their whole outlook changes, and their whole ability to interact really changes. So we've
Yeah.
seen that firsthand,
Yeah.
and are very thankful for that program. And now it's morphed to a monthly program. So why don't you tell our viewers who aren't quite so familiar with the program a little bit of how the program works,
Yeah.
and if they did join us, what they would expect to participate with?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad to do that. So one thing I should clarify is I am a music therapist, as we mentioned, and I was talking about what music therapy is. I don't actually consider my groups to be 100% pure music therapy, and one of the reasons is because music therapy is working on specific treatment goals, and there's often a lot of processing involved, and the goals sort of change from place to place. I will, of course, alter my goals specifically if there's certain people that might need certain things. There's a lot of kind of fine tuning there. But generally, the goals of my program are to create connection, to encourage movement, to build community, to feel joy, to get folks maybe reminiscing, either in their heads, remembering, or having connections to songs from their past, or maybe even with one another, starting conversations. So to the goal basically is all of those things. It's kind of a wide ranging thing, but ultimately, I always say to people, the goal here is to feel good and to have fun. I don't force anyone into anything. I don't pressure any people to, do any of the movements or the exercises or singing or anything. If you're there, that's good enough. We're there to be there, and then I encourage people to get involved. So when I'm talking about what I'm getting them involved in, there's sort of two prongs of what I do. One part of it is playing my guitar and singing familiar songs from a wide a range of music as I'm able to provide to try to meet the needs of the various people there. But the other part of that would be playing recordings of familiar music, songs that people are familiar with from years back, or depending on the needs of the folks, it could be songs that just came out recently if folks are into that kind of thing. And during those songs, I engage people in generally pretty simple movements and stretching exercises, sort of to encourage movement, but at a level that's comfortable for everybody. I'm always worried that I might be boring somebody because I'm having us do open and closed hands a bunch of times, But I invite people that the goal is, if there's people that for them this is enough stimulation, either for their brain or for their body, that's perfect. They can do this. And if there's someone who is finding they want to do more than this, great, good for them. I encourage everybody to get as personal and as creative with the movements that
Yeah,
we're doing. Yeah.
exactly. I mean, when you're with us in Somerville, um, there's some definite times where you're playing pre-recorded music and people are following you along, and it can feel a little bit like an exercise program, and people I hear from afterwards say like, oh, I go there for exercise. But then the next song right following would be you playing the guitar and singing, and a little bit of free movement or swaying back and forth in their seat. And then the people say, I come for the music.
Right.
I come to listen to him play the guitar. And then we have a third group of people who come for I would call it music trivia of you're very inclusive of having people pick what songs or pick what genre. So I can only imagine that in addition to the music therapy training, you must have gone through a lot of music training to teach yourself. I don't know how many instruments and different varieties do you play?
Yeah, I do play a bunch of instruments. I play piano. Bass was one of the first instruments I played. I played trumpet growing up. I can play percussion and some drums. But guitar is definitely what I'm most proficient at, most comfortable doing, and also what makes most sense for the style of what I'm doing now. I could not carry a piano around with me so well. So I find that guitar, I think a lot of people would probably agree that guitar can be one of the best instruments for music therapy work, just because it's so versatile. You can play so many styles and it's portable. And, you know, I back to what you were saying about sort of meeting different people's needs. That's one of my goals, and one of the big things that drives me in this work is, and one of the reasons I think it's so successful, if I'm tooting my horn a little bit, it has been very successful. I go to many different places, and the reaction is always quite positive. And I think one of the reasons is because I do try to make it sort of a blend of all these things, right? It's more, I would consider it more entertaining than a lot of traditional straight exercise classes, and it's more physically stimulating than musical performance, and there's more emotional and and community needs that I try to meet than there might be in either of those things, in terms of connecting folks to one another. And one thing that's very important to me is I try to learn the names of every participant in all of the groups that I do. So it's hundreds of people. But to me, one thing I have seen from folks is just having that connection, feeling like someone knows you personally, I think has gone an incredibly long way. And not just making the program successful and for folks like that are deciding if they want to have me come in, but more importantly, it makes it beneficial for the people that are there, is feeling like, wow, this person knows who I am. Wow, I haven't seen them in a month and they know who I am. And that's the thing we all need to feel, I think, right, is connection, especially in these times. The fact that somebody is trying to know who you are, I think, is something that really means something to me. And meeting the needs of all these different folks in these different areas means that no matter who the person is, I think they have a place in my group.
Mm-hmm.
If they are someone who is excited to move and get exercise, great. If they're a dancer, different kind of movement, great. If they're a person who loves music and they love singing, great. If they love listening, great. I'm adding a lot of fingers here, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm also pretty goofy and pretty silly in my group. So if someone likes humor, I make a fool of myself all the time. There we go. That's 5 fingers. And you mentioned music history. I like talking about, I do a lot of research about, where these songs came from and where the artists came from. And now we got 6 fingers here, right? So now if there's somebody who's not into any of those things, any of them at all, they're probably not going to be someone who's going to come to my group, right? Which means that everybody who is into my group is at least into 1 or 2 of those things. So hopefully it's touching upon something that connects with one of those individuals.
Yeah. I mean, I think that you said it perfectly, that people come for all different reasons and they share with us after. But I think a lot of people focus on the outcome of what's more typical, the exercise benefit, the music benefit. But really, your focus seems to be on the connectivity and really the socialization of what music can do for us. And I mean, I think a great part of the program is hearing people talk about where they were when that song came out and what they were doing in their lives and sharing the memories and really connecting through different memories and connecting through music. Right. And do you see that across the board in your groups?
Yeah, I mean, that's something I'm always shooting for, but of course it depends on sort of I know some people don't like the term population because it sounds kind of, medical, but depends on, I go to many different communities and I work with folks at all different stages of life, pretty much adults at this point, but there's quite a lot of variance in sort of cognitive, physical abilities. So for some of my groups, the ones like yours, where folks are kind of more independent livers and some of them might be experiencing some cognitive challenges, of course, memory challenges, and also some physical challenges as well. But those folks in groups like yours are really able to get engaged in the sort of some of the dialogue. So I'm always sensitive about wanting to provide that, but also recognizing that this person over there might just want me to play a song, right? So I'm trying to constantly fill out the room, nonstop. It's a lot of energy, but I'm constantly sort of surveying and picking up on what's happening here and there so I can see, okay, this person seems to be super excited to talk, and these people are as well. But that person over there sort of seems like they want some music. So cool, I'll chat a little bit and then I'll maybe go back to them and do a song for them. Find out something they like and maybe touch upon that. Kind of meet the needs of everybody.
Yeah.
But
I think you're really great at getting people involved in playing their favorite genre of music. But is there a certain genre or song that really makes you happy or excited to play for people?
That's funny. I guess I want to have like 2 responses to that, I guess. One is I do get excited if there's a song that I've recently taught myself and it's kind of one that's been in my head and I'm like, I need to, and I've turned it from a song that I've learned to a song that I've memorized and I'm now able to play in front of people. So that's exciting. But this might not be the most fun answer, but it's the thing I enjoy playing the most is honestly just what in the moment is going to work for those folks, right? So I do these groups, 14, 15, 16 a week. I go 3 or 4 places a day, right? And there's some songs, if you're in certain age groups, that are probably going to work pretty well. So I do have some fallbacks, like if I'm having a day where, let's say I'm like, all right, maybe I'm really tired, or maybe maybe I had a rough day, or maybe I've got a headache and I'm sort of feeling a little bit out of it. I got a couple fallbacks and I'm like, okay, this one's always going to go well, right? And a couple of those, Love and Marriage, right? Frank Sinatra song, Love and Marriage. I do that song. I do some hand exercises in that song. I was mentioning I do conducting and that one, no matter what's going on, as I said, if I'm having low energy that day, or I'm like, okay, no one needs to know what's happening inside. I've got a headache. I'm tired. but I'm going to come here and I'm going to go to some of my go-tos, right? And the
Mhm.
goal is I'm always going to outwardly present the same way. So I might go to a go-to like that. But it's making me think of something. I've never been a huge country music fan, but now working with, older adults, a lot of folks are into country music. So
Mhm.
I've started to learn some of those songs, and it's not something I'm familiar with, but I've taught myself a lot of these old songs and researched them. And just the other day, I had a group at a community where there was another thing happening. There were flu shots or something was happening. And so only one person, rather than usually the 8 or 9 that they're allowed because of COVID protocols, there's only one person there. And this is a woman who I've worked with for probably 3 years now. But come to find, she loves country music. So that entire session was just the two of us. And I played country the entire time, and we had a wonderful conversation. She told me about all these artists and suggested some songs that I might want to know, and we listened to new songs together, and I was playing a couple by the end. And the best song for me that day was the country songs, right? That
Yeah.
was what was making this woman feel
I laugh
she was.
because you have a few country music fans in our group, I know.
I do, yeah, I do. And when I see them, I'm like, all right, let's do it.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, I know we talked a lot about your work
Yeah.
and what you're currently doing, but where do you see your work progressing in the future?
Yeah, it's a good question. I would say I could do exactly what I'm doing now every day for the rest of my life, as long as my arms are allowing me to play guitar, as long as I can sing, as long as I have the energy to bring to people, I could do this forever. But there is such a demand for it, and I'm only one person. So I am interested in expanding. If I
Mhm.
find it's going to be a process, I'm going to have to learn about what that would take, do some research about taxes and all sorts of what it's like to hire people. But I'm going to, the idea would be that, there's places that have reached out to me that I just can't go to, or places that have said, we love what you
Mhm.
do. Can you come every week instead of every other week? And I said, I can't, I'm too full. But I
Mhm.
would, but knowing the power of this work and knowing the need, and just how many people benefit from this kind of interaction and from the program, I would love to bring some other people on board. Um,
Exactly. Yeah, that sounds wonderful because you can really see the difference in how music can change your life, how can change your mood, and really, cognitively, behaviorally, it touches every part of us. So
it
we
does.
are very fortunate that you're with us and stayed with us throughout the
Yeah.
pandemic. And if anybody would like to come, we are in person the third Thursday of every month at 4 o'clock. So a nice afternoon treat with Steve to move a little bit and get your request in for your favorite song. And I just have to say, Steve, that even if you don't know the song, by the next time you come, you've learned it. And that's been
Oh
completely
man, now I'm in trouble.
impressive.
Now I'm in trouble.
That's been impressive. So I put you to the challenge
I'm on the
and
spot now.
welcome everybody out there to our Holland Street Center on the third Thursday at 4. And thank you so much for joining us.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me, and thank you for all you do for the folks in the community. They're so lucky to have you and everyone that puts these programs on. It's a wonderful thing.
Thank you.
Yeah.